So today we have a special guest from Haven, and Haven provides confidential support, legal advocacy, counseling, and a safe place to stay for anyone and everyone impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and stalking. They work to empower survivors to elevate their voice, strengthen our community, and hold abusers accountable and stop the cycle of abuse. And today we have Meilyn, who's been part of the prevention coordinator and educator for Haven for some time. Meilyn, how long have you been working for Haven?
Yeah, so hi Tara. So I've been working at Haven 3.5, almost my full 4 years. This August will be 4.
Nice work. So I love Haven. And one of the, I've actually referred many people to Haven, many contacts I've had. So if you want to go to episode 90, you can hear about Sarah's experience and her experience with Haven. Or you could go to episode 21, where we talk about Erica's experience and her life-threatening situation and how Haven was instrumental. So grateful for Haven, so grateful for you, Meilyn. And let's get started. So let's just talk about the myths when it comes to domestic abuse, because there's so many of them. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's unfortunately a lot of different misinformation or just myths that can be shared for a lot of different reasons. So I think for Haven, the most important thing that I would like to highlight is that we work with all survivors of domestic violence / intimate partner violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and or stalking. One of the myths is that we can only work with either women and or women and children only specifically. And so that would be the first myth to bust is, again, we do work with all survivors of domestic violence and intimate partner violence.
And it happens in lots of different arenas and lots of different interactions.
Yep, it's unfortunately much more common, or even just abuse dynamics, power and control dynamics can definitely, unfortunately, be more prevalent than some folks might know of or be aware of.
Definitely. What's another myth?
So another myth that we would like to debunk is sometimes folks will ask the question of, well, what's at the core of domestic violence and intimate partner violence, which is a great question. But a lot of the times I get that question because the example that folks are thinking of might have examples of either substance use or substance abuse, financial stressors or work stressors, for example, or just additional things that folks might think are contributing to the power and control dynamic. But ultimately, at the core of all domestic violence and intimate partner violence, there is that power and control dynamic. And so it's really important that folks aren't just looking at the why are folks doing this, but really looking at that it is happening. That, again, at the core of DV and IPV, or domestic violence and intimate partner violence, it's that power and control. There's always going to be one person who has more power and control than another individual or individuals within that relationship.
Let's talk about that some more, because I feel like sometimes domestic abuse is hard to notice because there's so many different aspects of it and how it can present. So understanding that power and control and the power, control, and the abuse wheel, could you explain more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a really neat resource, and Haven did not come up with it. I believe it's the Duluth model who came up with it first, or the ones that really pioneered that particular resource. But it's called the Power and Control Wheel. And there's a lot of different versions of the Power and Control Wheel. It's community specific, I will say. Power and control wheels. And so what I call the big term umbrella of the power and control wheel kind of has a lot of different things listed in there. At the core, again, of that particular resource, we will see that power and control, and then we'll see behaviors stemming from that power and control. For example, things like coercion and threats, intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation and some of the components that could be experienced and or seen within domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And then there's usually another layer or component to that as well, where a person causing harm can also escalate the violence into either physical violence and or sexual violence as well. But kind of again at the core, or what I call like the seed of violence, is that power and control, and everything kind of grows from that.
So true. So about the isolation and the mental abuse, can you talk more about that? Because there's so many different facets of it that people, I mean, a lot of times people are in it and they don't even realize it.
Absolutely. So one thing that I share a lot during trainings, because that is what I have the privilege of doing, is I do get to talk about kind of the concept that a lot of the times these particular behaviors start out on the more quote unquote allowable like side of things. And what I mean by that is the isolation piece or the emotional abuse. Chances of there being like a really, really, really intense, like a 10 out of 10 on the red flag scales for folks to happen on date number 1. Can it happen? Absolutely. But chances of it happening on that first date aren't as high, just because the way that I describe it or the way that I talk about it is, if Tara, may I use you as an example?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. So, say if I invite you to go out on a date, we'll keep the romantic piece, if you will. But if we go out on a date and I immediately show you your 10 out of 10 on your red flag scales, are you willing, interested, wanting to go on date number 2? Now,
Oh, no.
yeah. So there's no real right or wrong response. Folks might say yes, and that is entirely okay as well. But I do often get an immediate like, no, absolutely no. And then I ask the question of, okay, so great, keep that in mind. What if we go on date number 1 and it's perfect? Everything is great. There are no red flags that show up then. And we go on date 2, date 3, date 4. Now we are both very invested, heavily invested in this particular relationship. And that's when I start to show some of the pink flags. I won't even call them fully red yet. Are you maybe more willing to stay in that particular relationship?
Yeah, because then you start like justifying and being, oh, maybe they're having a bad day or whatever. I mean, you don't, yeah,
There's a lot of
totally.
reasons. Yeah, like there's
Yeah.
there's a never-ending amount of reasons as to why I might be interacting with you in X, Y, and Z sort of way. And ultimately, again, when looking at DV and IPV, or domestic violence and intimate partner violence, it is looking more so at the, okay, but this is also going on. Not just justifying or thinking through what could be going on, but also taking a look at this is also what's going on, which is really hard and can be incredibly difficult to identify and even want to identify, because this is, for lack of a better word, it should be, and that's a dirty word, but it should be a relationship where I'm loved and cherished. And so my thought process isn't going to go to immediately abuse, but it is going to go more so towards like trying to rationalize or trying to process what's going on in the particular relationship, or why my partner is doing X, Y, and Z, which makes a lot of sense. I don't want to shame anyone for trying to think through things, because I definitely 100%, I like to process through things as well. And so nothing wrong with that, of course. But yeah, I went totally off.
I'm offering some free pages of the Unravel notebook to help support you along the journey and to correlate with this week's episode. So look for the link and enjoy. Oh, I think that's fabulous. Let's talk about red flags then, because that's the thing, I think it's not super uncommon to be like love bombed or, just being shown this picture and get us invested, and then the pink flags start creeping in. But what would be some red flags? Because sometimes I think it's like we don't see it. So being able to know like, hey, this could be a red flag and you need to probably like look at this in relationship to what else is going on to get a better picture.
Yeah. So we do also talk about healthy and unhealthy signs of a relationship as well. I do have the privilege of getting to have these conversations in school settings, and so the resource that we use the One Love Foundation. And so the signs that they talk about, they use 10. So the 10 that we usually talk through for red flags are possessiveness, which sometimes folks will call that jealousy, which we can call these a lot of different things realistically. These are just kind of the starting point, or starting terms, if you will. So that first one being possessiveness. Isolation is both and, because again, usually starts off with more allowable asks, or just not really like big asks usually. And again, I can't say for sure because it's not rocket science. But more often than not, again, we're starting kind of on the more allowable side. There is also intensity as well, just in terms of how fast is this particular relationship going. Is it date number 2 and I'm already saying that I love you, and I'm already like wanting you to meet my family, for example. So that can be one of those red flags. Mm-hmm. Another one would be belittling. And that can look like a lot of different things, or a lot of these actually will look like a lot of different things based on the individual themselves, because what I might consider belittling may or may not be the same that you consider belittling. And so also kind of having some of that in mind, if you will. Another sign is manipulation, deflecting responsibility. So if I bring up a comment, a concern, something, and instead of you, I'll continue using you as an example if that's okay.
Yep.
And if I bring up a comment, question, or concern to you, my hope is that you're going to want to address it, right? Especially if it's something that is having me feel some type of negative way. My hope is that it's going to be addressed. And so if you don't take responsibility, or if it's just deflected onto anyone else, that can be really difficult on the receiving end of things. Another sign is volatility. So kind of that concept of I am unsure of how you're going to respond or react. That can be incredibly scary. And again, kind of thinking of a spectrum, if you will, of less intense to more intense. Demanding, betrayal. This is one of the newer signs, I would say, that I've noticed. And then sabotage as well. Or these are the last two are new signs that I just saw on their updated lists.
Can you tell me more about betrayal and sabotage? Because I'm not really familiar with what that's referring to as much.
Yeah. So let me pull those up, because they're new ones, and so I want to make sure that I'm describing them properly.
But it's interesting while you're looking that up. It's so interesting that it starts off and it's kind of like a progressive. And I think that's a great way that, power and control, that kind of hook the person of less power and start to create that dynamic. So it's very interesting. Kind of like the frog in hot water. You put a frog in hot water, it obviously would feel it. But if you heat it up slowly, it'll stay in there and cook. So that sort of situation.
Absolutely. And I like that is why it's hard. That is 100% one of those reasons why it's hard, because again, more often than not at the beginning, it's going to be on that particular spectrum. It's going to be on the lesser side. It's going to be things that I won't really consider too big of an ask or too big of a deal to address in some way. And so that is part of that cycle of abuse as well, because now I'm kind of I might second guess the question or your comment or something, but because it's not too big of a deal, I might still be willing to work with that, right? And so then I'm in this particular dynamic where you ask me if something, and I may not be 100% certain, but I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go ahead and do it. And then that's part one. Then we can move on to part two, where now you ask for a different thing. And so that's kind of building that particular dynamic or that particular space, if you will. So for betrayal, it's described as when someone is disloyal or acts in an intentionally dishonest way. So, kind of, again, either trying to keep things from an individual or sharing private information about you with others. And it definitely includes any sort of lying or purposely leaving you out or leaving information out. What some folks might call like being two-faced, essentially, where I'm saying something but then I'm behaving entirely differently. And then, of course, I think a very common, unfortunately, way of thinking about betrayal is also just cheating in general. And so all of those can be different examples of betrayal. But ultimately, again, it's whatever the individuals are defining that piece as, because maybe the way that I define cheating may not be 100% the same way that you are defining cheating. And so, kind of, again, this is it becomes a really gray conversation sometimes once we do get into the like nitty-gritties of things, if you will.
So really, as individuals, we have to know like what works for us and what this feels like, and really be able to value our thoughts and feelings and consider them as important. And if the other person is chronically not considering them important, that's definitely revealing the power and control dynamic.
That is a great way of summarizing that. Yes, absolutely. Which can be difficult. One of the things that I share specifically within school settings when I get invited to do presentations is the fact that I can go over all 10 signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship, but ultimately you have to know what they actually mean to you. Because I know what betrayal looks like to me. But if you've never thought about what betrayal looks like to you, then you might have a lot of comments, questions, or concerns if you do encounter betrayal within a relationship. Which makes sense, because if you've never thought about it, then how would you know what betrayal looks like to you? Or even, like, again, manipulation or isolation or any of these things. If I've never thought about it, my thought process could go to the more extreme examples of manipulation or isolation, where it's very clear from my point of view where that is 100% isolation. But again, when looking at DV and IPV, or domestic violence and intimate partner violence, it's going to usually start out in a much smaller way and build until it gets to those more extremes, or if it does get to those extremes. And so I can miss a lot of the before it gets really extreme, or what I consider to be extreme, I should say, because again, it is very individual, fortunately and unfortunately. And so it does look like a lot of different things all at once.
I'm so glad you're teaching the schools and educating people. I remember running into a gal, and it was like one of the pastor's children that I knew when I was younger, and she was in a horrible, horrible, scary, awful relationship. And her comment was, I didn't really know there were bad people. I didn't know that you could have this bad dynamic, because for her, she was sweet and kind and understanding, and it got so bad, and she had a hard time understanding that, wow, this is really somebody manipulating her, controlling her, and he'd put her in closets and lock her, just stuff that it was just so baffling to her brain to understand that people could be this way, that was part of the challenge. So like thinking about this stuff ahead of time is for kids is so, and young adults is just so important. So are there any other myths you'd like to share with us before we talk about Haven's support services and what you guys do?
Yeah. So, I would say the last myth, or a question myth that I get a lot is, well, why does this particular human harm the partner? And so part of what we would like to talk about as Haven is kind of flipping that particular discussion or that particular question to not only like, why does this person not leave the partner, basically, because that's usually the question that I get is, well, why don't they leave? And so kind of flipping that particular script to the original questions of, well, why is this person causing harm? Because again, it's not why this person is choosing to stay in this particular relationship, but more so why is this person causing the harm to begin with. And so trying to have that conversation, or just staying away from the question of why don't they leave, because there's a lot of different reasons as to why an individual doesn't leave. And I can't know every single reason. And so again, just really, again, flipping the script, and also just listening and honoring survivors as well. They know their situations best. They know their stories best. They know their partners best. And so really trying to listen to them, and just support them in that particular space and time.
Oh, it's wonderful. So what is Haven, what are the type of support do they offer survivors? How do you guys roll?
Yeah. So we have a lot of different supportive services. And so I have like one liner when talking about Haven. And so Haven provides supportive services to individuals experiencing any type of domestic violence, /intimate partner violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, or stalking. So that's kind of the one sentence summary. And then within all the different supportive services that we offer, we do have our 24/7 support line. As well as our website, chat, and texting, and so kind of offering a few different options for folks on how to connect with us. We also have our shelter as well. This is a pet-friendly shelter. I love to talk about that, just because it's not very common. And so just offering that particular additional service feels really great on my end, at least, to get to share. We do offer community education, kind of like what I've been sharing about, in a lot of different settings. And then, of course, we have advocacy. Advocacy is like the big term umbrella, because we do have different advocate roles within advocacy. And so we have our survivor advocates, we have our sexual assault advocate, our sex trafficking advocate, and then the legal advocates as well. And so those are, again, just a few different advocacy roles that we have at Haven. We have our youth engagement services, which also falls predominantly under my job description, and that community education piece. And then we have counseling and support groups, which again, kind of offering folks both of the different types of supportive services of counseling, kind of being the stereotypical image or offering of the one counselor and one survivor or participant, and then support groups as well, so that folks kind of have both of those options. And then lastly, survivor engagement services as well, which would fall under our Survivor Speaker Bureau, or End the Silence, which is a group of survivors that we gather for 12 weeks out of the year, for story writing and then story sharing at the end of the full 12 weeks. And so that is my 3-minute intro into human services.
That's huge. Very, and my biggest thing, because we're not talking to people just because we're in Bozeman, Montana, Gallatin Valley, that there are a lot of domestic violence services. And if you ever think that you're in a situation like this, I mean, there's a chat and text support, even with Haven, that's not just for Gallatin Valley, at 406-586-4111. And honestly, just connecting with domestic abuse hotlines or different organizations is huge, because a lot of times people that are in it, they're like, I'm not sure if that's what's going on, but I'm feeling physically horrible. I'm having physical symptoms. I'm scared. I'm walking on eggshells. I'm afraid to leave, all of those things, but it's really hard for them to define things. So just having you guys and trying to understand the whole situation and having a third party that's experienced and knowledgeable makes a big difference. Because I think when you're in it, you just don't see things.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing the support line phone number. That is both our support line and our texting as well. And so folks can give us a call. Again, it is 24/7. I usually make the joke of it's 365 days a year or 366 on a leap year. So at any point in time, folks can connect with us via the support line. And we do. So some of our services, like legal services, for example, might be more Montana or even Bozeman specific, but our support line, our website chat, and texting, those are available and open to anyone and everyone. One thing that I do want to add on that is if you find yourself in a supporting role, say if a friend is sharing with you that they are experiencing domestic violence and intimate partner violence and you have questions, or just trying to figure out how to best support them, you can always give us a call as well. We're more than happy to provide that space, resources, information, whatever you might be needing as well. So
that's huge.
Actively and also in supportive roles as well.
Yeah, because usually if somebody's in domestic abuse, they're only sharing it with very few people. And, a lot of people receiving that, they're not sure what to do or how to handle it. It could be new to them. So having that support is amazing and very, very important. So what I have to say is pass this episode along to anyone that might be benefit from this conversation, because it's so important, and it's just to be informed and to know the different options is vital. Vital for us to live brighter every day and not be in these situations that are toxic and destructive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else? Any last words, Meilyn?
Yeah. I'm a huge word nerd, so I would love to share the definition that we share at Haven for domestic violence and intimate partner violence. If that's okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So the definition that we use at Haven is domestic violence / intimate partner violence is the systematic use of physical, emotional, economic, spiritual, and or sexual abuse tactics to gain and maintain power and control in an intimate relationship. And so that's kind of the definition that we share, and I'm happy to connect with folks if anyone has questions around it as well. But yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Meilyn. Go ahead. Go for it.
One last thing. I do also want to just say thank you for inviting us and having this conversation. It did take us a minute to get it in the books, and so I appreciate you, again, just wanting to connect with us and giving us just airtime. Because I, being the prevention coordinator, I am into prevention. And it just makes my world go round to get to share information with folks. And so thank you for creating that space and inviting us.
Sure. I'm so happy to have you. And that definition of domestic abuse and violence is so vital and important. So that's one, just to sink that in and understand that, because it's very different than what a lot of people think. If you break that down and understand that can look very different than our stereotypical ideas of domestic abuse. So power control doesn't feel good. So that's the summary.
It does not feel good. And that is one of the things that I talk about as well. Because I can't even say, you're going to feel mad or sad. Like, there isn't really one singular emotion, but kind of reminding folks of, like, checking in as well. Like, how are you feeling? And just kind of, again, naming those pieces, because like you mentioned, being on the receiving end of not just romantic power and control or abuse, but any sort of relationship where there is that power and control imbalance or just power and control dynamics, it doesn't usually feel good for folks. And so just kind of reminding folks to feel that. Really helpful. So
I think that's huge, because I think we can justify it with our minds, but our bodies are telling us. And Meilyn, I have to tell you, no more dates. We've had a few there, and I've got clarity, so we're done. So the rest of you,
100% understand.
so the rest of you, make it a great day and live brighter 1% at a time. Thanks, Meilyn.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for our next episode.